All good at home too? So good morning, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to the Retired Living True series and today's topic, finding purpose after retirement. Welcome to the people at home who are nice and cozy and didn't have to brave the elements. And thank you to those having a full room who did brave the elements and dealt with slippery roads. Did anyone see any cars sliding at all in front of them? Because I know Annette and I did. Yeah, you did. Kelly did. Yeah, so a few. Yeah, so road conditions aren't the greatest. So glad that you're all here. Did everyone get a handout? Everyone should have a handout on their desk. Yep, perfect. And binders. I'm just curious, who brought along a binder from a past seminar? A few people. And can you put your hands down? And those who didn't put up their hand, can you put your hand up if you have a binder at home? Okay, so a few people left them behind. And hands down. And then just a show of hands, those who don't have a binder at all, because we didn't give any out today. And just a few. Okay. And show of hands, those who like the binders and having somewhere to put all of your handouts for each seminar. Should we do that again for next year? Yes? Okay, we'll definitely do that for next year. We can use these. Oh, I like that, saving us money. Excellent. Yeah. So that is a good idea. So how about we use those? And if you bring them along, we'll give you a new front insert in January. January and February, we'll swap out the inserts. So thank you. Appreciate that, Avis. Extra points, you do. You'll get an extra chocolate. Oh, yes? Oh, so I'm hearing someone misses the magnet schedule. So who would like a magnet schedule? Oh, quite a few people. Okay, so we need to print magnet schedules. We'll do that and we'll have those available in January. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. What else in yeah. So binders we covered. Yes, and we'll come back to that. Excellent. So I think we'll just jump straight into the topic. So today's topic, finding purpose after retirement. So who's not retired in the room? Just me? A couple of others? Okay, a few of us. So for those of us who aren't retired, do we have a vision perhaps of what retirement might look like, some kind of idea? And I'm sure everyone in the room prior to retirement had an idea of what retirement would look like. So for those who are retired, does retirement maybe look different to what you thought retirement might look like in some way? Anyone? Yeah, a few people. Okay. And then has anyone discovered as we go through retirement, we continue to age, our purpose might change? Yeah, see a number of head shaking. Yeah, so that's what we're going to kind of talk about today, because sometimes we have preconceived ideas of pre-retirement, in retirement, what the rest of our lives looks like. And does stuff change in life? Do we all have changes going on from one reason or another, all sorts of things, whether it's the environment, us as we age and so forth. So that's what we're going to kind of talk about today. And I have two fantastic speakers who are going to help me. And I'd like to start off by just having you both introduce yourself, why you might be here today, a little bit about your background and what makes you both experts on this topic, because I know you're experts. Maybe I can start with you, Kelly.
All right. Hello, it's good to be here. And I want to thank Annette and Brett for inviting me back. Been here before. I really have a passion about this topic, and I'll get into that some more. So my name is Kelly Macmillan, and I'm a social worker by training. I work at the Sanford Center for Aging. Sanford Center has been around for over 25 years. We provide a variety of services to older adults. One of them is a geriatric assessment clinic where we spend 90 minutes with patients and their care partners, assessing their psychological, medication, and physical health needs, making recommendations. I'm part of that team. We also have several community social service programs, and I provide administrative oversight to those programs. As a social worker, I also provide field instruction for students who are studying to be social workers. We work closely with the School of Social Work at the university as well. I'm also involved in the community and some boards, and I really enjoy the work I do. That was one of the primary reasons I came to University of Nevada, Reno over 6 years ago. So that's a little introduction to myself.
Thank you, Kelly, and welcome. It's great to have you back again. Annie.
Hi, my name is Annie Monig-Reed, and I'm the Director of Senior Outreach Services at the Sanford Center for Aging. So Kelly and I work together. I am also a social worker by trade. I've been a social worker for over 20 years. During my time as a social worker, I've spent a lot of time working with the aging population. I've been a case manager in the hospitals here in Reno, both at St. Mary's and Renown. I've also worked in palliative care as a palliative care social worker, and I've spent some time working in skilled nursing facilities. So I've spent a lot of my career working with the aging population, spending time with them. I am many years away from retirement, unfortunately, because I think about it all the time. And I do think about what is that going to be like when I do get to retire? You know, what stage of life am I going to be at when I retire? You know, how am I going to be healthy? Is my husband going to be healthy? Are we going to be able to do fun things? Are we going to have enough money to do fun things? So I do think about that at, you know, right now at my age. So it's something I have a lot of interest in as well. And I'm just glad to be here today.
Great. Thank you so much, Annie. And just before I forget, can we have a full room? Can everyone just make sure their cell phones are off? I know the last couple of times we've had challenges with cell phones going off. So if you could just double check, make sure your cell phone is turned off or at least muted, we'd really appreciate that. Thank you. And I just wanted to see a show of hands. Do we have some of our education partners in the room? I see a couple. Hand up, education partners. So I just want to say thank you so much for all of your help this year in making the seminar series possible, because without our education partners, none of us would be here. And we just appreciate you so much. We actually had a mastermind, I think it was last week or the week before, where we got together with all the education partners and worked out the program for next year. So we'll have our schedule of topics available to you maybe at the end of today. And we're excited about some of the things we're doing for next year. So thank you again for our partners for all of their contributions. So let's, yeah, a round of applause. Yeah, thank you. So if I could start with you, Kelly. In the introduction, I kind of talked about things perhaps change in terms of what our thoughts for retirement might be and as we age. What are some of the reasons for that? Why is retirement perhaps not what we may have pictured earlier? What could cause change?
That's a great question, because in many ways, I think it's important for us to really take a look at the concept of retirement. For me, it has the notion of that I'm going to withdraw, when in fact, many times people don't withdraw, they really become engaged again in different ways. What's changed in some positive ways for folks when they reach that point when they leave the traditional workforce is that their health is better. They're more engaged in some ways in the community and with their families, et cetera. And so that's a positive change, I think, that we're really seeing. Ken Dickwald is a person who's studied aging and looks at folks as they reach midlife and beyond. And he's got a book out, What Retirees Want. And in reading that, it's really, how can I stay engaged? What's my purpose? How many of you have a purpose already? I mean, you have a sense of your purpose. And I think, so we live in a time now where people might have more time throughout their life to engage in leisure activities for themselves. But we also find at this stage, it's a period of creativity as folks have more time to think about things they want to do or go back to things that they used to do years ago. And because they have more time. So like I said, I think it's a changing attitude per se. And I like to think that we're not retiring, we're entering a new chapter, a new stage of life, which is exciting. We look forward to it. That isn't to say that there might not be some challenges along the way. We do know that as people age, they experience what we call functional disabilities, maybe more difficulty getting around, walking. There may be some health challenges. But we have a pretty good healthcare system in this country. And I think if people do preventive care, you know, have the screenings done, see their physician, nurse practitioner, PA regularly, it's going to help them in this post-work period. So I think there's a real positive change about retirement. It's probably very different than what your grandparents and maybe even your own parents thought retirement was. And I think that's the good news.
And could we maybe just define what purpose really means for anyone sitting here thinking, well, what do you mean by purpose? I'm going to conquer the world. I'm going to do something before I pass. What is purpose?
That's a great question. So I do believe that sometimes people, because of early life stuff, you know, they get married, they have children, they have a career, et cetera. And so they may have some things that they were really passionate about, and those may have gotten put on a back burner with the intent of coming back to them. And so this is a time to think about, what is the meaning of life for me at this stage? What excites me? What is giving me zest to live? Why do I get out of bed in the morning? I think those are the kinds of things to look at purpose. I think it takes a positive attitude in many ways to get back in that stage of, the purpose. At this stage of life also, it's a space where we're doing less for ourselves maybe and more for others. When I was doing my dissertation, I interviewed a man, actually had some significant health problems, was living in assisted living. And he talked about how he had been a salesman all his life. And he said, I was always busy doing that and taking care of myself and my family. He said, but when I reached the stage when I no longer worked, he said, I wanted to give back to the community. So what he did was he called older adults every day, check on them. So that's a sense of purpose. And again, it goes back to some of our values. What's important to me? Are they part of my spiritual values, my values around community? That's where we find our purpose. And sometimes I think it may take us time, and this is where we might seek out a counselor or a coach to sort of dig deep into what is the purpose. And I think also then, what do I have to let go of? What do I have to let go in terms of past life events, circumstances that were not great maybe? Am I really ready to give up the idea of work? If I've concentrated a lot on work, I may not have been able to see my purpose. But once I begin to let go of the work idea, my sense of who I am as a worker and more as a person, a citizen of the world, I think I can find my purpose.
Thank you. So I thought when I get into retirement, I'm gonna have all this free time because I'm no longer looking after children and family and so forth, but you're hinting maybe that's not the case. Is anyone busier in retirement than they were before retirement? Oh dear. Oh, okay, so maybe I have the wrong conception.
That's why we're having this conversation.
Yes,
right?
exactly. Yeah, I'm here to learn. Yeah. You guys are all just listening in. It's really our conversation and you get to learn with me. So Annie, I'm just curious. I know there's this perception that perhaps as we age, we slow down. The older we get, the slower things are. Can you just tell us a little bit about that? Is that true, or is that maybe a choice? Obviously, sometimes there's physical things that slow us down. We have no control over those, or less control. But is it just naturally as we age, we are going to slow down, or is that not the case?
Well, I think it's important, as you always hear, age is just a number. So, it really is about how you feel about your aging process and how you're feeling. There are things that affect, of course, as you age, genetics. Those, we can't control genetics. So those are things, you could have a health condition come up or something. But there are things that are within your control that you can make aging a more positive thing, such as what you eat, eating the right amount of protein every day, eating a more plant-based diet, drinking enough water every day. Drinking water is really important to staying hydrated. A lot of older adults get dehydrated very easily. Getting enough sleep. Things as easy as taking care of your dental health. I know that sounds silly, but taking care of your dental health is really important. Teeth can cause a lot of infections that we're just, we don't really think about. Let's see what else can be important. I think avoiding toxins is important, looking how much you drink, if you smoke, trying to cut that out of your, daily routine. So, but I do think there are things that we can control as people to help aging be a better process.
So doing something as, maybe it's not simple, but changing my diet and exercising, how does that show up? If I was to decide, okay, today I'm going to get rid of some of my bad habits, start eating more healthy, start, walking and doing more things. How would that show up in a month or 2 or 3 months if I was to continue to do that? Am I going to see a difference, or is that just like a nice thing to do? But
well, I think everyone's different. And so, people are going to see how they react to things differently. But I think if you start with maybe a 5-minute walk a day, if you're very sedentary, you're not spending a lot of time being active, starting with a 5-minute walk a day, moving it up to 10 minutes, the next week, things like that, I think you will see a difference. You'll have more energy, you'll feel better. You'll feel more excited about going on that daily walk.
Let me chime in. I think that's a great question because fundamentally, it's like, what difference does it make? In our clinic, we worked with an older adult who had some memory problems. And hers were beyond sort of the typical forgetting a name here and there, but just a lot of details she would forget. And her family had to repeat things for her. Our recommendations were exercise, watch your diet, abstain from alcohol, et cetera. Had a recent conversation and she said, my memory is improving. She said, I can remember the people in the apartment complex where I live. I remember their names. And she has a daily planner. She's writing things down. And I was really impressed with the fact that she could perceive this memory change. And there's no medicine better than exercise, social engagement, sleep, diet, abstaining from alcohol, in terms of maintaining or improving memory. There are some memory conditions that are going to advance or progress, but we don't have to sort of withdraw. There are things we can proactively do. So I think these health things that Annie's talked about are excellent ideas.
So I guess we could all experiment with that and decide at some point, okay, I'm going to change my habits, do it for a month and see if I feel any different.
Sure.
And,
yeah. And I think you can change things, one thing at a time slowly, to see what is making a difference, to change a ton of things at one time, then you're just going to give up and be like, forget it, like that was too much. So I think slowly progressing towards, doing some exercise, changing one thing in your, eating plan, or maybe getting an extra hour sleep or going to bed an hour earlier, just things like that, but just take one step at a time.
So maybe add a new one each 30 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So
this is
that'd
the
be fine.
perfect time with the new year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, great timing for this. And that would be purpose too. You would certainly have a purpose like, okay,
Yeah.
I need to be on this new plan. And you and I, Kelly, talked about routines, and we'll come back to that, why routines are important. So thank you. So another question I had is, if I have a sense of purpose today, and many people put up their hands saying they have purpose, is that always going to be the case as I continue to age and maybe things in life change? If I have a sense of purpose and I've always had a sense of purpose, will that continue to be, or is that something I have to be aware of and work at? And what might cause me to lose my sense of purpose and have to reevaluate?
I think the short answer is yes, we're going to continue to have a purpose, and it may change a little bit based on our ability to sort of get out and about and do things. If we're no longer driving, it might be more of a challenge. But I think the pandemic had its good and bad parts. We found at the Sanford Center that if we could use Zoom technology and people had the means to communicate through that, that they could stay engaged through programs like this. We have our community wellness programs, exercise, managing diabetes, et cetera. We're able to do those things remotely, and so people stay engaged. There may be things that really challenge us, though, in terms of health conditions that come up. And I think, one, we need to realize that aging itself is not a disease. And number two, depression is not a normal part of aging. What can happen is if I face a chronic condition that worsens or a new diagnosis, it may impact me emotionally. It may feel like a big challenge. And I have to get the health condition addressed. It may change my ability to function like I used to. But I think this is where attitude plays such an important role. If I have a positive attitude, it's going to make a big difference. I was telling Brett in preparation. So that for me, it's the idea of an optimist or a pessimist. So psychologists were really interested in this. And so they got some young kids to kind of see who's an optimist and who's a pessimist. So they brought one child into a room and there was this big pile of manure. And the child said, "Oh my God, this can't be good." Guess who he is? The pessimist. Brought another child in, he got excited. He says, "Oh my God, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere." So again, our attitude, whether optimist or pessimist, is so incredible. So again, there are adjustments, but if we maintain this positive attitude, this optimism, I think we're going to find things. And it may be a struggle sometimes. This is where our friends, our family, and again, I'm going to emphasize, there may be a counselor in your world sometime to just talk things through and sort it out and say, to re-examine what is my purpose, or how am I dealing with some of my loss of physical strength and ability. So I think it's not quitting, not giving up. As I worked with older adults in my dissertation, they talked about, they experienced challenges and they said, today's not the day I'm going to give up. I'm going to keep going. And I had several say to me, almost word for word, if you give up, you will die. And then they would tell me a story about somebody who they knew who had given up. And so I think this is the part of aging that we experience. It's not, quote, all downhill. I think the ideal is that I'm going to die in my sleep and not be sick and suffer. So again, I think maintaining that positive attitude and saying, I'm going to get up today, I'm going to continue. I may have to make adjustments in how I do that, but I'm not quitting.
So you kind of touched on depression and counseling. So do I have to wait till things are bad? Because I know there's some people who are in a bad place. Do I need to wait till I get to that point before I seek out a counselor or a coach to kind of help work through this issue? Because I know there's like a stigma of reaching out for help in the Western world, especially in the US, from my experience coming here, people are less likely to want to reach out. And I just know how valuable it is having help and support from others. Like Annette and I, we have a coach, and that's really helped our lives as we go along. And you run into a challenge, you got someone to bounce ideas off. So what would you just say to that in terms of anyone who's listening in or in the room and or knows of someone who's maybe struggling a bit, to overcome that stigma of, because it's not like I'm signing up for lifelong counseling. It's
Correct.
Yeah. So
No, I can't.
address that?
I mean, I absolutely think counseling is a good thing to do. You know, it's someone there who's doesn't have an opinion about what you say. You know, they're just there to listen and, you know, take what you're saying and kind of give you some advice. But it's someone who doesn't know you personally. They don't know your background. You know, they're there to just kind of listen and give you some honest advice and feedback. So I think counseling at any time, you don't have to be depressed to get counseling. You know, a lot of people just get counseling to have that person they can go talk to once a week and talk through some challenges they might be having. Or so no, you definitely don't need to be depressed to start counseling.
And just some tips. If I did want to go and seek some help, where would I go here in this community?
There are, I don't have the list in my brain, but there are folks out there who provide counseling and services, et cetera. The one thing I would say, I have a particular bias. The Sanford Center has a geriatric or gerontology academic program. And I really think we train a lot of folks in gerontology to understand aging. So I think that some of the folks who are in town who do counseling have studied geriatrics and gerontology. Geriatrics is more the medical side, gerontology is the social side. And I think it's important to find somebody who really understands aging and isn't dismissive. I mean, I've actually heard people say, you know, somebody said, well, you know, you're aging now, you're older. This is how life is. That's not true. It doesn't have to be. So I think there are some good therapists and counselors. And it's not like it's a mental health problem. It's a life adjustment problem. And that's what a lot of counseling is about. And there may be somebody at your church who's a pastoral care person. I really would encourage people who have had training in some ways to provide the service. And as Annie was saying, it's a person to bounce off ideas and to kind of check in with from time to time. And it may not be something you do for months or years. It may be periodic. And again, you don't have to wait until it gets really bad. I mean, if you find yourself, it's like, I'm off kilter, things aren't working well, and my attitude's off kilter, what can I do? Counseling may be the right answer.
And if you do decide to seek counseling for any reason, you may, you know, meet with somebody for the first time, and it's just not a good fit, and that's okay. So don't give up though. You know, it's always good to go to somebody else, because sometimes, you know, personalities just don't mesh when it comes to counseling. So it's okay to realize that, and then to just make an effort to see somebody else.
Great advice. And so we touched on some things that can throw off our purpose. You mentioned perhaps not being able to drive anymore, or some physical things. Well, what other things would individuals or couples encounter as we continue to age that might kind of throw us off and you know, just throw us off kilter, as you kind of said, Kelly? I'm thinking like passing of a spouse would be an obvious one that would kind of totally rock our world in terms of.
I think that's a good example, and also a very tough one, because I think our lives are built around relationship many times and those things. And for an individual, then it's really hard to say, how am I going to get back out in the community? Typically what I hear folks saying is like, well, there was a group of us, you know, couples, we got together, and I feel like the fifth wheel. I feel it doesn't fit. And I think the other side of it is, for those other couples, there's an awkwardness, and it's just speak to it, talk about it. You know, we want you involved. We know that your partner is not with you, your husband, spouse is not here with you now, but we want to keep you involved. So I think we as individuals can take an active role. So I think death and loss are really significant pieces. The other thing that may occur is there may be a move. It may be that I downsize my house and I actually leave my community and I go someplace else. And I think this is huge, because we have this social network we build over time. It doesn't mean we can't rebuild it, but it's a real challenge sometimes if I move to a new community. So it's like, how do I get involved? There are programs such as OLLI, Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. Universities have a lot of programs for older adults, again, because they're interested in educational, recreational, cultural sort of things. I'm a strong advocate of senior centers. Senior centers are not just a place where, quote, old people go and just congregate and hang out. The various communities that have senior centers have recognized the real challenge of keeping folks engaged. And so they're having more activities. They may do more recreational stuff, more exercise, crafts, depends on what they have available. So again, we have to do some looking to see what's out there. Sparks and Reno Parks and Rec have a lot of programs. And that's, I think, the challenge sometimes is how am I going to get out and go by myself? You know, we can't wait for someone to call us to invite us. We need to call them and say, let's make a date to go do something. I know when I was studying a senior center back in Kansas City, I asked one older adult why she came, and she said, well, she said, a friend of mine invited me. She said, because I was widowed, and she said, I wasn't getting out much. And she said, I know a great senior center. They have a lot of fun here. Go with me. And so she started to go with her friend. It sort of broke the ice of being single again. So I think, we play an important role, I think, by inviting people as well. And I think that's a purpose. How do we engage family, our friends, our neighbors, our community? I think that's part of purpose.
Thank you. And then, so Annie, I just wanted to ask you about what happens to us, just in your experience. What do you observe for people who have lost purpose or fulfillment? What does it kind of look like? How do they act? How would we recognize someone who's?
Well, I think when people lose interest, lose purpose, you tend to see people be more isolated. They don't really want to be around others. They tend to just want to stay home, be in front of the TV, stay in bed. We see a lack of motivation. We see people that are feeling more depressed, So I think that's what we see in people that lack a purpose, don't really know why they wake up in the morning. And I think that's, if you do notice that in your friends or you feel that way yourself, that's a good time for you to actually, reach out to that person and invite them out for coffee or for lunch or for a walk. Or if you are that person, you're feeling that way, try really hard to pick up that phone and to call a friend, even if you only have one friend you can think of, call them, and try to get out for lunch, or because it is easy to get bogged down and to feel like, why am I still here? A lot of my friends have passed away. I no longer have my spouse. I don't get up and go to work every day anymore, and those kind of things. My health, it seems like it's deteriorating. There are things like that. That's life. It's real. It's being a realist, understanding those things are going to happen. But I think just, trying to think of ways, how can I bring myself out of this? I'm going to call a friend, I'm going to call my best friend from elementary school, I'm going to go find them. There's so many ways to find people these days and find connections from the past with social media and all that.
So it sounds like that's a real choice, to self-isolate, to become more depressed and kind of spiral down and not even less and less purpose.
And it's easy to do.
Yeah.
And it's easy, and it's very hard to get out of. So, but I think, one of the easiest ways to get out of it, and I'm just saying, if y'all know someone like this, to really just reach out to them, extend that, hand and ask them to go out, or because it isn't easy, especially when you retire and your life just changes. As Kelly said, it can be very positive, though. It's a very positive move too, and it's just a different developmental life stage. So.
So Kelly, can you just talk a little bit about what you see and the differences between people who have purpose and those don't? And you were telling me a little bit about the Japanese philosophy, Ikigai, and how that fits into this.
So we know that there are certain parts of the world where people live into old age and they're healthy, and some of the people in Japan have studied Okinawa, and so part of it is that these people have a good diet, they exercise, they're engaged every day, etc. And again, they have this sense of purpose. Why do I get up in the morning? What is it that gives me pleasure? What do I enjoy doing? And as I said, it may be a shift from work, those kinds of things. And it may be that I look forward to going to the market. I see people, I see the cashiers, and I'm friendly with them and they're friendly with me. But again, it's looking back at that sense of purpose. How do I tie myself into the community in some ways? And so again, this notion is it's not just physical health that makes a difference in terms of our longevity, but it's our attitude, et cetera. One of the things I think that's important is gratitude. And how many have a gratitude list? All right. So your homework is every day, do it either in the morning or at night or both. Create a gratitude list. And this is the hard part, is what am I grateful for? I believe some of our misconceptions is I'm grateful for these great big things, but what are the very simple things in life that I'm grateful for? It's like, I'm grateful for this beautiful sunset in Reno, or et cetera. So make a list of 3 things that you're grateful for. Keep it very simple and do that. Years ago, I started doing a gratitude list, and I really found a change in my attitude. And then I got busy, stopped doing it. And one day I noticed I was feeling just down, not depressed. And I realized I had quit making my gratitude list. So I went back to it. And so I think, again, those are the kinds of basic things we can do. And again, when we think about what we're grateful for, it might help us attach then to our purpose. Those people, places, and things that give me meaning and value. So again, gratitude list, keep it simple. And do it every day. And if you want to really spice it up, share it with somebody. Call your friend up and say, "What's your gratitude list today? Let me share mine." Or maybe your husband or wife, etc. But again, reach out and let people know what you're grateful for. I think that's what gives us the boost in terms of our attitude. It really does rewire our brain. Again, optimism, pessimism. There are these neural pathways in our brain. And if I'm a pessimist, everything I see and do, I'm going to find the negative, right? Now, we need to sometimes be really cautious. So I'm not saying throw caution to the wind, but if I'm negative about everything, it's going to influence my life. The gratitude list, I think, helps me to find the very simple positive things in life that get me out of bed and that I notice. I think that's one of the benefits of this post-work time, is there might be more things I notice because I'm not so busy with work and agendas and projects, et cetera.
So actually on everyone's handout on the back page, I think we have a section there. Do I have a handout? For actions. It's always good to leave a seminar or anything where you've gone to learn. Do we have actions? No, we don't. But we have a section for notes. So who would be willing to try an experiment with me for the next 30 days of having gratitude each day and reporting back if it made you feel any different? Because I know I've done it before, Kelly, when I've kind of felt off kilter. I'd read a book that said exactly that, just every morning. I think I've done it both writing them out or even just when I go for a walk. Okay, before I start, what are 5 things I'm grateful for? And I know that helped tremendously. And just like you, I realized when I'd stopped doing it, it's like, oh, I'm feeling different. It's because I'd stopped being grateful. But it really just, as you said, kind of rewires the brain somehow in terms of, has anyone done that before? Done like a period? Yeah, several people have. So who'd be with me just to try it for the next 30 days as an experiment? Yeah, a few people. Yeah, let's report back. I'll check in and I'll ask. January the 13th is our next seminar. And it's, well, I'm just going to ask the room and those who agreed, and then those who actually did it, and then do you feel any different? So you're going to be all holding me accountable. So if I forget to ask, someone please remind me, January the 13th, Brett, did you do your gratitude every day? Annette, please remind me every day. I need to create my new habit, new routine.
Well, so here's a twist on that. Instead of putting the burden on Annette, you let Annette know that you did your gratitude list. And this is the thing, I've got to be proactive. What did I do? This is the key thing. I can't wait for others. Yeah. Okay.
I like that, Kelly. Yeah. So was that coaching? Did you not just give me some coaching?
Yes.
How to improve? It didn't feel like a shrink counselor lying on the couch,
no.
Soprano scene. It was just giving me a new tool I can add to my tool belt to make things better. So thank you. So I like that, the gratitude list. Excellent. And who is optimistic in the room? How many optimists do we have? Anyone who's optimist? A few. Okay. So I guess we'll give it a few pessimists in here too. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe they're indecisive.
Indecisive, not sure. Yeah.
But I think optimists.
I think if you do that gratitude list, you'll be more optimistic in 30 days than you probably are today.
Absolutely, yes.
Yep. Excellent. Yeah, so just touch on routine. We mentioned the word. Why is routine so important?
And again, that's interesting because I think it helps us stay connected. So I've experienced the notion of when I take a vacation, I don't have my calendar and I'm not paying attention. And I sort of get lost. What day is it, et cetera. and over time, I sort of get disconnected with sort of the world and routines, et cetera. And so I think routine helps us to put us in sort of this notion of what's next, what are the kinds of things that are important. So again, this is where the nutrition, 3 meals a day, exercise, drinking the water, good sleep, establishing that so it becomes a habit I don't have to think about. And so I think, it's interesting about habits. It's like what we fall into. So there's good habits and bad habits, of course. But this routine, I think, just sort of normalizes our sort of life. And again, like I said, I think as people withdraw from the workforce, they lose some of that routine. Gratefully, they lose it. But it's how do I build a new routine in? And I think you talked a little bit about, Annie, it's like when I don't have that routine, I'm more prone to depression or withdrawal from social engagement. So again, the burden's on me to do these things. Again, I think it's fine to sort of have a partner that you check in with each day or once a week and kind of check in.
Accountability partner.
Yeah, right. How's it going for you, et cetera. But again, like I said, I think that routine keeps us engaged physically, emotionally, socially, in many ways.
But the accountability is not my partner nagging on me. It's me being proactive, telling them, holding myself accountable.
Yeah, and you got some bragging rights.
Bragging rights.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think that's really, really important. So again, thinking back to working in a counseling situation, we had a client who was really, really negative. And so her therapist said, every day I want you to speak into a little tape recorder and then listen to it. And so she came back to therapy. She said, oh my God, she said, I couldn't be friends with this person. Okay, so this positive attitude, that positive accountability, we want to hear that, right? I mean, I think you would agree. I mean, we all have those folks out there. It's like, oh, I don't want to talk to so-and-so. I mean, and again, I think in a loving, kind way, we can say, I'm willing to listen to some of this stuff, but I want to hear the positive stuff, and so again, I think that's what friendship is about. That's how we care about other people, is to say, I'm going to put a limit to how much of this negative stuff I'm going to listen to. I want to hear the positive stuff.
So I should start recording my negative friends and go, hey, take a listen to this.
Yeah, you probably won't hear from them again.
Probably won't hear from them again. Well, maybe they'll realize they didn't realize that's how they were coming across.
And I think that's a good point. You may not want to record it, but I think sometimes, again, it's in that loving, caring way of just kind of say, lately you've just sounded like things are not going really well, and it sounds really negative. What do you need?
I can kind of relate to that. Sometimes when I get frustrated or angry or whatever, if I recorded it, I probably wouldn't like hearing myself, but it would be a reminder of, need to take a chill pill or whatever.
Just take a hike.
I hear Alexa, my executive assistant, and my wife Annette and Kirsten, they're all going, yeah, Brett, take a chill pill. Record yourself. Now they're going to be recording me all the time.
They're learning new things here.
We're all learning. So if I am lacking purpose, what are some suggestions? We've had a few, but what else could I do, especially if I see it in someone else, to try to help them get out of that funk, to find purpose? You mentioned just reaching out to someone, I think, is the key. If you see someone, or if you yourself know reaching out for help, what else would we suggest?
Well, I would suggest looking into volunteering. I do run a volunteer program, Senior Outreach Services. It's a great one. If you're, we match people up with seniors that are more isolated in the community, but there's all sorts of volunteer options out there. There's, you go, if you love animals, volunteer at the Humane Society. There's the Senior Corps, is that?
Yeah, so historically, we've had a program at the Sanford Center called RSVP, Retired and Senior Volunteer Program. It's been rebranded at the federal level to Americorps Senior. And so we have volunteers who work in the school system. There's a large group called SAVE, and it's an acronym for the folks who patrol the streets, look for abandoned cars, et cetera. They work with the police department. The Senior Outreach Service that Annie runs is another very large volunteer program. And we've done some things where we've done what was called Art Partners. With COVID, we had to stop a few things, but our partners was we had people who were interested in art, who could drive another older adult who liked art to art events at the university. We also have a program called volunteer transportation, where we have volunteers transport older adults to medical appointments, health education, and other sort of activities, because we know that staying engaged and active is really important. And I think the challenge is, I get tired of maybe just going to the doctor's office. I want to go have some fun and go to a movie. I think, again, that's where our senior outreach service volunteers are really helpful, is because they find out, what does the older adult really want to do that's different and fun? So volunteering is really key. We're getting ready to develop a new program around volunteer work, where we'll have trained volunteers to take folks to medical appointments, to act sort of as an advocate, second ear, so that those people, when they're getting a lot of medical information at the doctor's office, you know what that's like.
Mhm.
Now write that down, please give me the list. And they'll have a person who's not really a coach, but a support person there to say, remember when the doctor said this or that, and kind of check in with them. So that's a program we're developing now. And so I think that's a key piece, is volunteer work. We know that when people volunteer, the volunteers are healthier, they have good mental attitudes, et cetera. And again, it ties back to their sense of purpose, giving back to the community.
Yeah, and I also wanted to say, if you were one of those people that just loved working, you could always pick up a part-time job if you want to. I was actually at a toy store recently looking for a gift for my son, and most of the people working, they were retired, and most of them were older, aging, people, and they were having more fun playing with these toys. They really were. Like, they showed me like 3 different games, and we played them. And I think that's what she just went there to do. It really got her back in touch with her childhood, and she loved it. I mean, she just smiled the whole time, and she wanted to play all these games with me. And I was like, all right, this sounds fun. So, something like that is something you can always explore.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because Kelly, you talked about that when we were talking last week or the week before about having a conversation with our younger self, what we used to enjoy as a way of coming up with things that maybe we'd forgotten about in terms of passions, because we were too busy in earlier life and never had the time to do it. So can you just talk about that just a little bit more?
Sure. And again, you may have experienced this yourself. There might have been something you really enjoyed doing when you were younger, or thought about doing, but didn't. Maybe it's time for that guitar lesson, or maybe you wanted to do painting or ceramics, et cetera. And it's like, now is the time to sort of think about, how can I be creative in my own way and express myself? And many people over the years have done creative work that we know. For instance, Michener began to write his books later in life. There's an artist in Kansas who did much of her work later in life, and she really depicted what it was like to grow old. So again, it's, how do I engage in some creativity and think about those things I used to do when I was younger that got waylaid for good reasons, and now it's time to get back to that.
Can you just tell us a little bit more about Ollie? You briefly mentioned that. That's affiliated, obviously, with UNR, and a lot of people. Who's familiar with Ollie here in the room? A good number of people.
Oh,
yeah.
Great.
Seems like that's great.
Tell us a little bit, because I have a couple of questions about that.
So Ollie stands for Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. Osher Foundation developed a program, and so different universities have an agreement with Ollie to have their programs. And there are educational programs they have. Some might be culture, might be about recreation. It could be about travel, et cetera. And you can propose a program to actually present an Ollie program. Again, it's to help older adults participate as people as yourself, but also to be presenters. And they are doing something very similar to this now. We're doing some in person, and we're still doing some virtually as well. So we do a hybrid model. It's been around for a while, and people who go really, really enjoy it. And some of you probably have some great stories to tell about your experience with Ollie. But again, it's how do I keep myself intellectually and socially engaged?
And so I'm going to this place, Ollie, which is on Moana. Actually, there's several locations. But what am I going there to do? Am I just meeting and greeting, or what does the program kind of look like?
We have hundreds of classes they offer every month. Hundreds.
Hundreds.
I mean, there's tons. I mean, you can do it, things like learning how to play the ukulele, or they have a movie club where they watch movies there like once a week, different movies, and they have like a screening room. I actually did like a string art workshop there, where some people came and they learned how to do string art and enjoyed that. Learning about different countries, languages, different languages, all sorts of stuff. So it's very active. Go hiking, there's all sorts of stuff that they do there.
Yeah, so I think that was the key, that there are hundreds and there's going to be something that interests everybody. So if you're looking for something to do, to get involved in, I think looking at the Ollie catalog would be a great place just to come up with ideas.
There it is.
Oh, someone already has Ollie, so thank you. Yes. So where do we go to get the Ollie catalog?
I think it's, you can go online, and I'm not sure, I think we actually have some out there in the lobby, but it's online, and I think they're doing a monthly. They used to do like a semi-annual,
Right.
and I think that's sort of challenging, so they've gone to the monthly one, print and online, and it's probably olli.unr.edu, I think is the.
You're right, Kelly. I'm just looking at our handout. We actually did put it on there. I did have a recollection after we spoke. Yeah, so it's on the second page of your handout down the bottom.
And it
We
does,
have some resources, yeah. ollie.unr.edu and a phone number.
and it does cost $58 a year to be a member.
There's a membership fee and there's scholarships. So,
Yeah.
There's no reason not to join. Okay, just.
Yeah, and they do send out a weekly email blast of all the programs being offered that week. So it's really great.
So when you say scholarship, if there's someone we know where finance would be a challenge, they have a program there so that that's not an obstacle.
Correct.
Yep. Great. Thank you. So actually, let's just run through the other ones that are here. Sanford Center for Aging, obviously, the Senior Outreach Services is on the handout. So if I was to call and wanting to volunteer, what would I be volunteering for with Senior Outreach Services?
With Senior Outreach Services, what we do is we match up volunteers with individuals in the community that have been referred to us. They're all 55 and older, and they tend to be socially isolated, live alone, don't have really any community support. And we match up volunteers with them just to spend time with them. It's a companionship program. So really all we are asking is that you spend maybe an hour a week with your assigned client and just give them that social interaction so they have that outlet with the outside world. They're not so isolated. Maybe take them shopping, grocery shopping, or to the pharmacy or to the bank, simple things like that. So that's what Senior Outreach Services is. It's a great program. As I said, we get referrals throughout the community from like Aging and Disability Services, Washoe County Senior Services. Some family members call and refer their parents or people they know in the community. But yes, so we are always looking for volunteers. We often have a wait list because a lot of people there are a lot of isolated people out there, and people want to refer them and get them more interaction. So we're always looking for volunteers. If you're interested, it's an easy process. You just fill out a volunteer enrollment form. We have about an hour-long orientation we do, and then that's it. And we provide free training throughout the year and gratitude gifts and things like that. So we would be happy if any of y'all are interested in coming on board and joining our team.
And if I did want to do that, Annie, do you have information that you brought with you today by chance? Or
I do, yes, we do.
yes, Yvonne. Yes, so
Yvonne
the
is-
UNR table outside, or see Yvonne, or if they can come and talk to you.
I have a
afterwards,
business, I have a card I could give you. So, or if you know anyone in the community that you think would be interested in doing that, or if you want to refer somebody for our services, I said, we do have a wait list, but we are, always going through that wait list and trying to get people off of it. So.
Fantastic. And for those who are watching from home from Zoom, if they went to the website, there'd be a way there, a form to reach out to them.
Yes.
Great. We talked about Ollie. Oh, we didn't mention Truckee Meadows Community College, the silver program they have. Was it you telling me, Kelly, or Annie, one of you made mention at TMCC? I'm making that up. Someone told me about it. So I know Truckee Meadows Community College have a program for retirees where they have all sorts of different classes as well, kind of like Ollie. I think they're paid classes. I'm not positive.
I think you're right, yes.
But it's a nominal amount, and again, on a whole range of different topics. So even just for ideas, even if you don't want to go take the class, it might be just a place to
Oh
get
yeah,
ideas.
UNR and TMSide, they do like extended education
Extended,
programs where you can, learn all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have a catalog too that they put out. So.
Has anyone been on meetup.com? It's not a dating site. It's a, I see a couple of hands. That's a great one. I know several people have used meetup.com. It has all sorts of interests again, where you can go and join to go, hiking, poetry, you name it. There's probably a group for it. just an easy way to connect with other like-minded people who have a similar interest, who are just learning something new, and a great way to be able to connect as well. And Sherry, do you want to come up for a second? So Kelly mentioned Americorps, am I pronouncing that right? Americorps Services, and the Seniors in Service program. Oh, that would help. Thank you.
Got to come up here.
So Sherry just reached out to me like a week or two ago, and I thought they have a fantastic program. Once I understood what the meaning of the name was, they need to rename it, in my opinion. Sherry's going to tell you about it because I think it's great.
So our program is Seniors in Service, and we house two of the Americorps senior programs. We have the foster grandparent program, and we have the senior companion program. The foster grandparent program, we're taking folks over the age of 55, putting them in schools, having them mentor and tutor children. We do a stipend if you're income eligible. We pay a $3 an hour stipend, and we also reimburse for mileage getting you back and forth to the schools. We have sick and vacation time and paid holidays. And then we also have the senior companion program, and that is helping those isolated seniors have some social interaction, get out and get them to their medical appointments, go have their hair done, or have somebody just come over and talk with them, you know, and they come by regularly, once or twice a week. And so we're always looking for volunteers for those programs. And I'll tell you, I see those people, and they're just happier people after they have started volunteering. You know, they're coming in my office all the time telling me funny stories of what the kids said at school today, and they're just excited to get out of bed and go to school. So they're both really great programs if you're looking for something to do.
I had to laugh because Sherry had left the voicemail, and it was about being a foster grandparent, I think is what I heard or whatever.
Yes.
I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to foster a grandparent.
Okay.
I understand fostering a child, but fostering a grandparent.
So I didn't brand I didn't come up with this. We've been around for over 55 years, and the foster grandparent program, it does seem, it's hard for people to understand what we're doing. I've had people call my office and say, I don't have a grandma anymore. I'd love to adopt a grandma. And I'm like, that's so cute. We need to start a program like that, but that's not what we do. So yeah, it's kind of a little misleading, but then I think I got to understand it a little bit more after I was there for a while. You know, you're doing the fun part of educating the kids. You're not doing the heavy lifting that the teachers are doing. You're doing the grandma part, you're doing the fun part. And, you know, maybe there's some breakthrough moment you're going to have with the kids that's going to make the light bulb go off, and you get to go home and tell somebody about it.
I think it's a great reward for both.
Oh,
the adult
absolutely.
and for the child.
Yes. The intergenerational relationships that are built are amazing.
And if people wanted to find out more information, you're out front, you have some brochures.
I do. I have some brochures out front. Our website is seniorsinservicenevada.org. And you can look at all the information that we have available there.
I just want to say that we also.
Let me give one sec, Polly. Let me give you, just so everybody at home can hear you. Come up here, Polly.
Okay. Oh, I didn't want to do that, but okay.
Now you're in the spotlight.
Oh, I just wanted to say that we network also with senior outreach services. Our volunteers are 55 and older, so it's a seniors helping seniors. And the senior outreach services does the same type of thing. So if we don't have any volunteers, we will recommend the senior outreach services. And so it's kind of a nice little symbiotic relationship here in this community. So, you know, they're very similar programs, but there's just a wait list for both of us. So it's nice to work together. So again, if you want to volunteer for either program, it's very rewarding. And not only that, it's fun because you get a lot of rewards from it too. You know, it's a symbiotic thing. So I just want to let you know that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Polly. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. So some more ideas. So I'm just curious. Did you guys have anything you wanted to add to this before we look at questions?
I just want to emphasize, it's really important at this stage in life to find the zest. And sometimes it just might be creating it, you know, doing things positively with people, engaging people, getting together with them. But holding on to the zest for life, I think, is what gets us through even the tough times. So keep that in mind. So be grateful.
Great advice. So I'm just curious from the room here, is anyone involved in things that are maybe not obvious? It might be of interest to other people. And I'm probably not the best idea asking the whole audience, but is there anyone? Yes. Annette, could you just grab a microphone? And this is not question and answer. I'm just curious as to what other things are in our community. Yeah, please. Yeah. We're just going to get a microphone on.
You were talking about TMCC programs, and I have been involved with their senior college. It's a wonderful thing to look into. You can get online. It's called EPIC, TMCC EPIC program. And they have a senior college category. And I've taken language. I've taken, what have I done? Art classes, a fun piano class. Look into it.
I think I saw yoga on there too when I was looking. Yoga was another one. Yeah, lots of classes. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And can we just get a mic over to Joe?
Yeah, I want to mention Lifescapes, of course, the senior memoir writing program. Ollie has one or two of those programs, and I belong to an independent one in Sparks, where we meet on second and fourth Tuesday afternoons at the Sparks Museum now. And so we're a little bit more free form than the Ollie ones, and I like it that way.
Thank you, Joe, for sharing. And another great one where there's all sorts of activities, I forget, I don't know if it was on this year, but Art Town in Reno, where they have all sorts of different activities through the month of July. Lots of museums and art galleries and places you can go, and a lot of them are free. Just a great way to get out and do different things, explore different.
Right. And then there's also in May is Older Americans Month, and there's a variety of community activities. Usually there's a kickoff at the Senior Center on 9th Street. So again, those I think are great ways to get out and about, to see people, take a friend, and find out what's happening in the community and have some fun.
That's what life's about, isn't it? Having fun, enjoying, having purpose. So thank you both. We'll open up the audience questions and answers in just a moment, but I just wanted to talk about next year. So we have our schedule for next year, and it's probably too small to read, but in January on the 13th, our first topic to kick off the year is the truth about alternative medicine. And the change for next year is this other side of the room is going to be open. Who was here when we had the whole room that seats 150? Yeah, starting in January, we're going to have this whole expanded room back for 150 people. The challenge will be is we won't be able to do it via Zoom for those who are at home. So what we're going to do is certainly welcome everyone back who's comfortable being in the room, up to 150 people. And then we will make sure we record these, and we'll make the seminars available within approximately a week of the actual seminar date. Yeah, so it's in person only in January, just because we have technology challenges as far as being able to do it via Zoom. So, and schedules, I see a hand up. We're going to mail those out, I think, next week. Is that correct, Alexa and Annette? We're going to get those in the mail? Yes. So we're going to be busy stuffing and all that fun stuff. So we'll get those out to you. What I would ask is on your yellow evaluation forms, if you're new or we don't have your mailing address and you would like to receive a schedule in the mail, please make sure we have your mailing address and your name so we can get that out to you if you do wish to receive it. For those who are at home who would like a schedule, I'm pretty sure on the poll we're putting up, Alexa, maybe there's a question about that. In fact, Alexa, could you launch that poll for those who would like to register for January so they can do so from home? And for those in the room, on your yellow evaluation form, there should be a box there to check if you would like to attend next month, and we'll get you pre-registered for the seminar ready for next month. Any other housekeeping I've forgotten, Alexa or Annette? Oh, magnets. Yeah, if you could, just above where the name tag box is on the bottom right-hand corner, just write magnet if you would like a magnet, and we'll get magnets ordered and get those out to you. Do we actually have a schedule? Does anyone have a schedule here from this year in your folders? No? Do we have a schedule at all? It's on your refrigerator. Can I just borrow that for 1 second, Linda? So what we're talking about, this is what the schedule looks like that we're going to mail out, this size. The magnet's exactly the same, and it sticks to your refrigerator, and it just doesn't obviously have anything on the back because it's a magnet. So yeah, if you'd like a magnet of this size with all of next year's seminars, we'll happily get that out to you. Thank you, Linda. Any other housekeeping that I've overlooked? Alexa, you've got the poll up. I think we're good. So we have our mic runners. Vic from Amada Senior Care is going to help running the mic on this side to take questions. And Kirsten Munch from Janelle Moves Made Easy, our team, is going to take this side of the room. So if you have a question you would like to ask the panelists, please put up your hand and we'll get a mic over to you. And for those who are at home, so down here, Kirsten, for those who are at home, if you have a question, you can either type it into the Q&A box on Zoom and we'll read those out, or you can raise your hand. There's a raise hand button. If you raise your hand, we'll unmute you and the room will be able to hear your question. So Ricky, what is your question?
It's been depressing, the news.
I thought you meant I was depressing. The seminar was depressing.
No, you're awesome. You're really great. Just listening to too much news and being is a factor in causing depression, lack of motivation, loss of purpose, just because it's so sad out there.
I think that's a great observation, and
It is.
something to address.
It truly is. And personally speaking, sometimes I begin to think about like, what's the world going to be like for my grandkids?
Yeah.
And I have to, and I'm not that old, but I have to reflect back. What did my parents go through? What did my grandparents go through? Difficult times. I remember my mom talking about, rationing in World War II. My dad was overseas. And so as a country, as a world, we've lived through difficult times. I have a mentor who's 94, and he says, and I have a hard time with this one. He says, the world is more peaceful than what it's ever been. But when I watch all the news, that's hard. It's okay. So, and again, understand that because we have the news, we get stuff instantly. So, I think we might need to diet the news a little bit. I find myself doing that. Some days I'll listen to the radio as I'm driving places. Some days it's like, oh, this is hard. Because again, I think as humans, we take this in. It has impact on us in some ways. If you're empathic, it's like, oh, these situations are really sad and scary. And again, I don't want to minimize it, but the world has its ups and downs. There have been catastrophes. The tornado situation was really bad. It's not the first time that's happened. It's not going to be the last. And we hear a lot of it then tied to, well, climate change. There's been climate change through the millennia, if you believe the world's been around for more than a couple 100,000 years. And so again, I think it's how do I balance that? When do I turn off the news and find something that's more enjoyable? And so again, I think we don't want to completely ignore what's going on in the world, but we need to sort of moderate some of that. But again, recognize that when I'm in the midst of it, it's really hard sometimes to see what's going on that's out there. And a gratitude list, I'm going to say it again, a gratitude list helps me recognize what I'm grateful for in this moment, what I've got going. And yes, there's all these things happening to other people. I can say a prayer for them. I can wish them well. These are important things to do. This is, again, how we make the world a better place.
Is it prudent maybe to watch less of that? So we feel for the people in different parts of the country and the world where something bad has happened. It doesn't necessarily impact us personally, but it does impact us by hearing it, as Ricky is saying over and over again, in all sorts of disasters and things around the world and bad that's happened. And the news never seems to report anything that's positive. So we're kind of getting a skewed view of the world.
That's how they make their money.
That's how they
Yeah.
make the money.
Selling
Yeah,
bad
exactly.
news.
That's how they
And
make
they
the
get
money.
you wrapped up in the stories. And, I think it's all about, how it's making you feel. And if you're sitting there watching the news or like those news channels that are 24/7 all the time, and you're feeling yourself feeling bogged down, then change that. Go from watching those news 4 hours a day to 2 hours a day. And see if that makes a difference in your life, because they will tell you the same stories over and over and over again, just with like a little different twist. And then it becomes, well, what do I believe? What's really going on out there? So, I think it's just kind of maybe scaling it back. And if you're noticing it's making you feel really down, then, do something about it, make a change. Don't watch it so much.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's important that we know what's going on in the world, but it's also when we're constantly hearing the same things and negativity, it can be hard. It's hard for me, just like Kelly said, I have a 5-year-old son. I often think about, oh my gosh, what is his life going to be like? This is really, sad. It's sad out there. But like you said, I mean, the news is so much more available to us than it ever was. So people back, while, years back didn't hear the news like this constantly, over the radio, on social media, every time you turn on the TV. So
A couple of points I want to make is that as social workers, we study what's called social welfare, the history of the country, and et cetera. I mean, there was a time when there were a lot of orphan children out of the streets. And if you've ever heard of the orphan train, it was a movement to take kids out of the city and et cetera. So, I mean, and again, I'm not going to say that the things are the best that they've ever been, but they're better than what they used to be 50 years and 100 years ago. And again, I think part of it is what we have in this country per se. When I was doing my dissertation, one of my study participants talked about sometimes she gets really down in the dumps, feels bad about things. And she said humor was her best medicine. And so she got out her Dennis the Menace VCR tapes and watched that. And she said, I needed to find something to be happy about. So again, it's like, if I'm listening to too much negative stuff, and there may be negative things going on in my life, where can I find humor? Where can I find some joy, et cetera? That might take a little work. And yet each one of you is worth the work you put into it.
And I know I feel better when you've had a good laugh, something that's humorous, that kind of, it just changes the way you feel totally.
Yeah.
It's kind of a different outlook. Yeah. So I'm sure, Ricky, you didn't expect such a long answer of, but thank you. That was a really good question to ask. Over this side, Vic, do we have someone over here with questions? We're light on questions today. Our panelists did such a fantastic job that there are no questions.
Oh, for Kelly, you mentioned about an hour-and-a-half long geriatric assessment.
Sure.
Is that similar to, I'm on a Medicare Advantage plan and my mother is going to move to the same one, and they encouraged an evaluation by not one of the doctors in the group, but basically an evaluation of cognition, watched her walk, checked her blood pressure, about an hour-long exam. Is that similar to what?
Similar and not the same. That's a great question. So for folks who have Medicare, you're entitled to an annual wellness visit once a year. And again, ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And again, that's why people are healthier today, because we do more screening. So what they do is it could be a physician assistant, a nurse practitioner, or a physician. And they have a series of things that's pretty standardized for the Medicare guidelines. It's billable at 100% to Medicare. And the idea is to see how people are doing at that moment. If there's a health condition, address it. You can go every year, and then what's really good about it is if you go each year, they can sort of measure change and maybe pick up some subtle stuff. And people are concerned many times about their cognition. And so there are some screening tools. It's not necessarily the kind where they can do a full diagnosis of cognitive impairment, but they can pick up problems that might be some form of a cognitive impairment.
Yeah, they had recommended and do it every year. And at first I thought, why? But I understand now why. Thank you.
Yeah, and then to contrast, in our geriatric assessment, the difference is we're doing some of the similar kinds of things, and we go into a lot more depth about all the medications people are taking. We find sometimes folks aren't really sure why they're taking it or what they're taking it, whether they still need to take it or not. And so our pharmacist does a really comprehensive review of that. Our geriatrician and our nurse practitioner take a look at all the health conditions. Are there things that maybe are being missed. So that part is similar to the annual wellness visit. And from a social work perspective, we take a look at, what's people's housing, their social connections, how are they doing in terms of engagement, et cetera, and make recommendations. Many of the same kind of recommendations that Annie and I have talked about today. Annie fills in when I'm not available. So she's really familiar with the process. And again, we're going to say the same things. Where's your gratitude? Where's your mental well-being and those kinds of things? How are you socially engaged? What are you doing around exercise, et cetera? So like I said, we go a little bit further with our geriatric assessment.
I'm just curious, medications, is that one that can kind of throw us off?
So the good bad news is, or bad good news, medications when they're studied, do you know who they try the medications out on? Young kids. My son, when he was in college, they bring them into centers and they take the medications, they watch them, they pay the kids some money, they give them games to play, et cetera. So how an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old metabolizes medicine is far different than a 65-year-old. And so the dosages that are set for a younger population. So looking at medications becomes really important. Is the dose right? Are there medications that are competing with each other or that you shouldn't take? So I have to be really careful because I'm not a pharmacist. But our pharmacists will talk about, if you're taking certain calcium products and other prescribed medications, there can be contraindications. Are you taking, what kind of pain relievers are you taking? The non-prescribed pain relievers. Are they good or bad for you based on your health conditions? So, having somebody who's really knowledgeable about medications, drug reactions, et cetera, is important. Leslie goes beyond that and she takes a look at what are the over-the-counter medications you're taking? Are those good, bad, or indifferent? It's a multi-billion-dollar business. And a lot of this is not necessarily demonstrated to have a positive effect. But we're looking for things, right? We're looking for those kinds of things that make my life better, which is great. We should be doing that. But sometimes we don't have necessarily the expertise to read the fine print on those bottles that are over the counter, et cetera. So Leslie, our pharmacist, does a great job in going through all those kinds of things to help people identify what's the right combination. Our geriatrician, our nurse practitioner will do the same things as well. So they work as a team.
And also our pharmacist at Sanford Center will do a thorough evaluation of your medications. You don't have to go through the whole assessment. It's called our MTM program, Medication Therapy Management.
Correct.
And so you can refer yourself and they'll send you a form, you just fill it out and she'll review all your medications and give you a thorough report if things are contraindicated or whatnot. So it's a great service that's offered there. If you know anyone that has just tons of medications they're taking, or you yourself would like some more information, because these days, we all go to so many different specialists. It's hard to know, like, this doctor's prescribing this doctor's prescribing this. How do they go together? Because everyone's so specialized now. So.
And the thing I want to mention about that is that the pharmacist isn't telling you to stop taking it. She's saying, talk to your provider about this medication and this medication, the dosage, or are they both effective? Are they needed, et cetera? So she's helping you be familiar with what you're taking so that you can have that conversation with your provider.
Thank you. So tell me regarding that program. So you said I can refer myself to it. So age requirement, how old do I need to be? How many millions of dollars do I have to pay to be part of the program? What is the cost?
So there's no cost.
No cost.
Okay, yeah. And one of the things, so I want to tell you, so actually there's a cost to it. We have to pay people. We get grants from the Aging Disability Services Division for many of our programs so that we can provide these services at no cost to participants. It's fairly straightforward. It's called the Sanford Center for Aging. Ask for medication therapy management, or MTM. And what's your other question? Cost?
Just age. Is there an age?
We primarily look at folks 65 and older. We have different funding sources. So if you're under 65, go ahead and call. It may be based on the kinds of medical conditions you have. So we'll do our best to provide service to anybody who calls.
Right. Thank you so much.
Does your medication evaluation include vitamins?
Yes.
Yes.
She looks at all of it: vitamins, minerals, supplements, everything that you pop in your mouth.
Herbal, yeah.
We've actually had Leslie on one of the panels. I think last year we did a Zoom panel on, what was Leslie on?
Cannabis.
Yeah, the truth about cannabis. And Leslie was on that. She's phenomenal. I've got to speak with her numerous times, and I really like her. And obviously, you guys do too.
Yeah,
She's a great resource in the community. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Any other questions before we wrap up? I'm eyeing off the chocolates here, and I see some haven't
I
been
know.
taken.
Do you have one over here?
Did you notice we got holiday lint, those balls? They're my favorite. That's why we have them today, because I got to choose this month what we'd have. So if you don't like them, you can feel free to pass them back to me.
Is that Dr. McMillan or Mr. McMillan?
Either one will work.
Wha-
Either one will.
Either one?
Yep.
Or how about Miss McMillan? No.
No, that does not work. That does not work.
I would like your definition of the word purpose.
I'm sorry.
I would like your definition of the word purpose, because most of the stuff here is what we can do in retirement. But what about the purpose of wanting to do so?
So I think, again, I try to keep it really simple. It's like, when I see myself in the world, what do I see my role in terms of my relationship to others, family, friends, the community? How do I engage with that meaning, those things that are meaningful to me, what really matters to me? That's how I come to this sort of notion of purpose. I think it's very individual in the sense of like, I like to think of it as, why do I get up in the morning? What gives me motivation? Where's the zest that I have for life? And if I can find that, then I have a sense of purpose. Each one of us is going to have our own sense of purpose. There's no one single purpose. And again, like I said, I think it's what's my motivation in living a good life? And again, one of my areas of interest is what's called aging well. And there's some literature about what's called successful aging. To me, that seems too grand, but aging well is the sense of like, am I doing what I want? Do I have relationships with people I care about? Are there things that I find joy in doing? And what is it? And how, and it's not that we're required to give back to our community, but I may have, part of my purpose might be, how do I volunteer? How do I engage with the community? How am I just friendly to the people I see on the street to make the world a better place, one moment at a time? That's my definition. I think yours might be different. And that's really important to understand, is each one of us gets to define what the purpose of our life is. And again, it may change over time.
I have a couple questions from the audience at home.
Okay, we'll take those. And then Vic, we have a question down here when you're.
Circling back to the topic of health screenings, would you recommend an early cancer detection blood test like Galleri that screens for cancer and look for cancers that don't usually show up in any other early symptoms?
I think we'd be remiss to respond to that because we're not medical professionals.
Understandable.
I do believe cancer screening is important. And that's a great conversation for your practitioner, your physician, your nurse practitioner, your PA, to find out what screenings they recommend based on your history and your genetics.
Perfect. And then one more from James at home. Do you have any recommendations for employment databases for retired seniors in Reno, part-time positions preferably?
I don't really have one for seniors, unemployment senior. Indeed.com is a great website to go to look for jobs, and they have part-time stuff. Volunteermatch.org is a great place to go if you're interested in volunteering, and you might find other, ideas on there. So
what was that? Volunteer match?
Volunteermatch.org.
Volunteermatch.org.
And then there's also Nevada Volunteers, and they have a bunch of opportunities listed as well. Great.
Thank you.
This may be a remiss question. You may not be able to address it. Where do you draw the line, or how much intervention should you do when you see someone that's sliding and that doesn't really want to address what the issue is, even though she's aware of it? It's a self-denial. where do you draw the line, or how much intervention, and how do you go about it?
I like that question.
Yeah, that's a
Tough
great
one.
question. I think one of the things that comes to me is like, I think talking to the person about who they are, how you know them, how you know them to be. Like, gee, Jane, I've noticed that the things that you used to care about don't matter as much. And I miss that part of you. And I don't know what might be getting in the way. And the other thing that I find frequently is people are afraid. They're afraid of what it is. And that's real. And even when people get an answer about a diagnosis or a health condition, that's scary as well. And so I think sometimes, though, getting that information could be most valuable because they could be wrong, you know. And how, you know, it might be the kind of thing is like, you know, can I go with you to the doctor to get information? You know, the websites can be okay, but really get the right expert to find out what's wrong. Again, if it's just behavioral sort of things, you know, not taking care of themselves, et cetera, I think it's valuable to just go ahead and say, it concerns me and I care.
When you make that statement, don't respond positively.
Mhm. So when they don't respond positively, it's like, you know, I think sometimes, and this is hard for us to do as individuals. It's like, I'm not going to give up on you, Jane. I'm not going to give up on you. You matter too much. I care about you. It hurts me. Be honest.
I have done that.
Okay.
It's an individual, this is obviously an isolated case and it just relates to me, but it's someone that has physicians, is on medication, blatantly drinks too much. And I've said those exact words. And then for 2 days, the house is closed up so tightly that you can't even get near it.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Well, and again, you know, I'm not a person who wants to give up, but it's, you know, there are ways I think to maybe engage others, you know, are there family members, et cetera, that might take a lead. And this is the thing I've seen sometimes. I know with some of our senior outreach service clients, they've become really isolated in some ways. And even through senior outreach service, we're limited in how far we can go. And sometimes it just requires the family to take a role, and they're even limited. I mean, there's a thing called self-determination, you know, our inalienable rights. I think that's hard to watch.
But if you're concerned about their health or their safety, or, you know, they're locked up in their house, you can always have a welfare check by the police. You know, you can always call them, have them go out and do a welfare check if no one can get a hold of that individual. Or if you're really concerned, you can always call Elder Protective Services too, and they can get involved. So there are other options out there that can try to help. But like Kelly said, you know, right to self-determination is a real thing. And sometimes, you know, people have to really fail to understand. But if they're endangering themselves, I mean, being a senior, you're in a protected class. So there are services out there that are going to help you, like, you know, Elder Protective Services, as I said, and, you know, just calling the police to do a welfare check. So, yeah.
And I don't think you're isolated, because I've heard this many times. People will call us, I'm really concerned for, you know, whoever the individual is, because, you know, they're isolated, they don't come out, they're depressed and so forth. And I'm sure we've probably all encountered at some point in time, or many of us, someone in that. So I wasn't aware that you could call the police for a welfare check. So that's good to know.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then you said the other one was
Elder Protective Services.
Elder Protective Services, which we were aware of. Yeah. And then what does that look like? So if I call the police and say, I'm really concerned for my neighbor, you able to do a welfare check, what does that look like?
Well, they just, you know, they'll take the information and then they'll kind of decide, you know, the severity of it. And there's a team, the MOST team, that would go out, and they're a team of actual, like, you know, police officer, a therapist, and, you know, several individuals that ride together, and they'll go out to the home and just knock on the door and try to see what's going on. So it's a worthy thing to do. And especially if you're feeling like there's something going on that you're really worried about, you know, do it for, you know, yourself too, to know I'm worried about this person. You know, I need to do something because I know they're in danger, or there's something not going on right there.
And when they call you and they're mad at you, say, this is what happens. This is beyond what I can do. I'm powerless. And I think you need professional help, and it's beyond me.
But it is anonymous, like they won't say it's you.
Well, I
Yeah.
understand. Right, right. It's anonymous, but nonetheless, I mean, sometimes people sort of figure those things out
Yeah.
and they get mad. It's like, that getting mad sometimes it's like, use that anger in a good way to take care of yourself. But I'm not going to stand by and be helpless. I'm going to marshal support. And again, I say that not in an unkind way, and it may sound that way and kind of blunt. And sometimes we need a wake-up call, and it may not be enough. And that on our work, we experience that from time to time, and it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
And then Annie, so that's the police and a welfare check. So what is, if I call adult protective services, what does that look like in contrast? How is that different?
So it's hard to know because they don't really tell you what they're going to do. Oftentimes you'll just make the report and then, they kind of decide based on, once again, the severity of the report, if they're going to follow up or not, and they can't really tell us because oftentimes, sometimes people already have a record with them that, we don't know about and they can't tell you because it's all, protected information. So, but, just if you are concerned something's going on, it's worth making the report, if they decide to follow up or not, but at least you've done your due diligence to try to help somebody.
Yeah. And I've used them before with folks who are just in a bad way. And essentially it's called self-neglect. If the person says, yes, I'll accept help, they can do it. Again, Adult Protective Service can't force anything, but sometimes the workers may continue to keep in touch. And again, I think it's valuable so that at least they're not so isolated that nobody knows. And that's the scary part. We read about some of those stories in the paper. Somebody who nobody knew had expired in their home. So this way, at least there's some community knowledge.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions before we just wrap up? So thank you so much for everyone for being here. We've had a blast with everybody kind of for 2021 with Zoom, no Zoom, in person, not in person. But thank you for all bearing with us. We just want to wish everybody happy holidays and we hope to see you here for 2022.
Thank you.
On behalf of the sponsors and myself and our speakers, thank you. And were these guys great today? Did they share some fantastic information? Thank you so much, Annie and Kelly, for giving up your time to be with us today.
Good to be here.